And good evening. I believe we are live. We've had a bit of a week again, and I don't know how the rest of you are feeling. I know I'm like just so tired of this all. But our latest political news, and sorry, I'm joined by Amy tonight, so I don't think we'll be too long tonight. Actually, it's not too many big things to discuss, but the main thing is to know that the new version, the latest version of the bill, has now been published. And so you can go and see what it looks like now before it heads back to Commons. So Amy, do you know much about what's going to be happening with it?
Yeah, so what will happen is it will now enter into what we call ping pong, where the bill will go to the House of Commons, and the Commons will then look at all of the amendments that the Lords have put onto it and decide whether they want to keep them. And then it will go back to the Lords again if any changes have been made, and the Lords can then argue whether they think that that amendment should stay. And then it'll go back to the Commons again, and then the Commons will argue if they think it still doesn't look right, and it'll go back. And so that's why it's called ping pong, is it will literally just pass back and forth. And the more we can get it to pass back and forth, the longer that we can stall the implementation of the bill. And then once it finishes ping pong, it goes to what they call royal assent, and the King will say that the government are implementing this bill, and then the bill will become law at the given date, as far as I am aware. So anything we can do, because we are literally at the last hurdle now, to get those MPs to intervene, that's where we're at the moment.
Yeah. Well, what we want to do is create hurdles at this point.
Yeah.
So it's not too late to write to MPs, and we will talk a bit more about that shortly. So along with the publication of the bill as it now appears, and I think our clauses have also moved. Is that I think we're now, because previously we were clause 31. Where are we now? Clause 30. I think we'll have to scroll down for me can't see. Where we started a bit further on now, because they've added in other clauses like I think the social media one and things like that have been added in. So I just need to actually see exactly where we are at.
Yeah, I think we're at clause 32 there, Juliet.
Clause 32.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, just you do not have to go and have a look and see. It won't be where you're expecting to see it. So along with that, they've also now done a publication of the all the amendments that the Lords added. So the ones that passed. So that's in a separate document, I suppose, to highlight to the House of Commons as well. These are the amendments we made, so that they can take a look at that. So if you haven't been keeping up and you haven't really known what's going on, now is the time to kind of go and see where we're at with it, because it's now between it's the two stages.
It's much nastier than
definitely
the bill that we were looking at originally.
Yes. So some of the notable ones is that they're looking at making it much harder if your child has ever had any social services involvement, inquiries or anything like that, that they would need consent from the local authority to home educate. They're looking at doing a pilot study where parents would have to have a meeting with the local authority first before they can deregister. They're looking at escalating the stage at which local authorities could push for a home visit. So it's now like before they issue a preliminary notice, I think, because a preliminary notice has replaced the notice to satisfy, and at that point they can now pressurize you to have a home visit, because if you refuse, it potentially would kind of count against you. It could be seen as like, why are you refusing? Yeah, have you got something to hide, that kind of thing. So, and they're looking at so they call it considering the settings where the child is, and that means your home in most cases, unless they want to follow you to the park as well, and the shops and everywhere else you go. So so these are quite significant shifts in what they're wanting to do. So
Mm.
you do need to be aware, because it is going to affect you, and the things that the laws that we had before that we could stand on, those boundary lines that we could hold, they're moving. And it doesn't mean you won't be able to home educate. It doesn't mean home education is going to be banned. You will still be able to home educate,
Mm.
but we're going to be under a lot more scrutiny, and there are these lines that are shifting in terms of the power that the local authority holds over you.
Yeah.
So,
And
which
if
is
you
all.
do manage to organise something where you can meet your MP, and you manage to get a few home educators to go, then do, if you're concerned, post on the action group or message one of the admins of the various different pages and groups that this is going out on, and ask for help, because we are more than happy to share all of the communications and resources that we've got. I'm aware that there's a meeting with Roger Gale going on, and I was happy to provide as many resources to help bring that group up to speed so that they knew what the new
Yeah.
amendments were that are particularly nasty. And from what we understand, Kent have always been the first ones to volunteer. So it's highly likely that someone like Kent, and if you've got a very experimental local authority that are very politically minded, that they will step forward to be one of those 30%
Mm.
that will require parents to have a meeting with the school and the local authority prior to being allowed to deregister. So that's definitely a very nasty amendment that's been added that you could raise with your MP.
I do want to just clarify that a representative from the school would be at the parents' agreement for that meeting. So, but there may be some pressure to have somebody there from the school. So yeah, I think what Amy is saying is really important. If you are able to get a meeting with your MP, another thing you can do is give your MP good questions to ask in Parliament, that they can, because then if the minister responds to those questions, it goes on the record, it's in Hansard. So there are things that you can do and that your MP can do, even if it's just to provoke a little uncertainty, to raise an angle that they haven't considered before. So don't, please keep contacting your MPs if you can. I know some people are very frustrated because they say their MPs don't listen, and I know it can certainly feel that way, but perhaps consider who your MP is. Go and look a little bit more into their background, into their interests, and see if you can hook them on one of something that they are interested in. So, for instance, we know that the bill will discriminate against certain kinds of people that will find themselves being discriminated against either for skin color or ethnicity
Religious
or
belief.
disability or religious
Mm.
beliefs, and then you can perhaps say, are you aware that this bill can open up this group to discrimination? Um, so those are angles that you can take. You might have to get a bit creative. So yeah, that's
But
exactly.
don't be disheartened, because I've had a couple of people say that they were disheartened because they got a response that didn't align with what they had sent. And you have to remember that they always try to respond, and if they can't respond personally, they'll use a template to start with. Any further conversation that you have with that MP
Mm.
after they've used the template, they can't use it again. So they've
No.
used their ACE card.
Yeah, yeah. So do challenge them on certain points within that template letter as well, because there are things that they just it's a copy and paste letter, and it just comes out, and they think, there you go, I've answered your question.
Yeah.
And then you can say, okay, yes, but you've said this and this in your letter. Have you considered how it will? And you then can, and because they've just done a copy and paste and not done any research whatsoever, they will they will be on the back foot a little bit, and we'll have to go and do a little bit more research into it, which is a good thing in this case. We really
Yeah.
do need them to be thinking for themselves. So, yeah, so those are very important things to be aware of. And as I said, we'll mention a few bits in shortly about how you can, some other actions you can take. So next up, we want to share with you an article that appeared and then apparently disappeared in the Times this week. I'm a homeschool inspector. Parents are risking children's futures. Okay, let's just the fact that they even use the term homeschool, and this is somebody from the local authority who should know better. And this
Yeah.
is not a very nice article. It does raise certain questions when you read it. So it does raise the thing about how some children appear to not be being educated in the way that this person has kind of predetermined they should be educated, what their home should look like. And we've just been joined by Jen. Hi, Jen. So this he talks about he doesn't have statutory powers to enter, but there's all sorts of things. If you go and read, if you're able to read the article, and I'm sure the link is going to be in our Substack, so you can go and look at it properly. It's showing all that sort of prejudicial ways of thinking.
Mm.
And what they don't raise in this article is why. So they talk about parents that don't know what they're doing, or they haven't thought about it, and they've just got like home educating and they haven't got a clue. That's the kind of the gist of the article. But what they
It's
don't
all
talk,
from that particular officer's viewpoint. So it's
yes, but
very biased.
yes, but what they don't do is actually question and interrogate the reasons why. And I'm not saying interrogate the parents, they don't interrogate the reasons. Look at the reasons why these parents felt they had no choice. Why are they home educating when they clearly are struggling and perhaps not set up for it? And we know that for many families it is that they feel they don't have a choice. These children have really been struggling, and in many cases, even if the parent is struggling and not coping, in many cases that child is actually still better off than they would have been in that environment as it was. So this article will hit a nerve. It is thought provoking, and we should give it some thought and consider that this is what some people, how they are observing and interpreting some of what's happening out there. But something very interesting in this article, and I'm sure Kat's going to scroll to these stats, is that they've got a little bar graph in here, which is quite interesting, because they've missed something here. They've got it a bit wrong. So they said these figures here on this bar graph talks about in 2021 to 2022, 3,800 school attendance orders notices were issued, and then that escalated apparently in 2024 to 25 to 7,400. So there they showed it looks very dramatic. But and it says number of school attendance order notices issued, but when you look at the little asterisk at the bottom with a reference, it's referring to section 4371, notices issued by a local authority. Those are not school attendance orders. Those are notices to satisfy.
And in some local authorities, they use that as their initial contact with a parent.
Yeah,
So
but the thing is that they've misquoted these figures. So they've taken what is a notice. So notice to satisfy is if they've asked you for initial information, you've provided information by writing to them or by home visit or by a phone call, but they don't feel satisfied. They want more information from you. And so they issue a notice to satisfy, asking for more information. And a school attendance order comes after that if they're still concerned that the child isn't receiving suitable education. So he has mixed up school attendance orders with the notice to satisfy. And a notice to satisfy, you will normally have more of them. You will. And then if the parent answers satisfactorily, it doesn't advance to school attendance order. So this is actually these are not correct figures that is being used in this article. Now, we don't know why the Times withdrew this article, Maybe it was because they discovered they're using the wrong figures and it no longer backed them up enough and they couldn't replace them. I don't know, but it's very interesting. But it is worth going to read because it will provoke a lot of reaction, emotional reaction from you reading this. You will get probably a bit angry and so on. But we need to use that to write to MPs and so on.
It's extremely useful to see what potentially could be expected from someone with no training on home education to expect of a home visit, because there is a little bit in here that talks about a quiet space, internet access, and a desk being her minimum requirement. Now, I'm sorry, but the internet is not deemed an essential basic living requirement, let alone an educational requirement. So it really does show the narrow-minded attitude of some of these officers who have come from a teaching background. They haven't come from a community background. So they've got their criteria from a different set of backgrounds. We had a local authority officer that had come from a enforcement background, so she had only ever seen the bad bits in the parents coming out of the school because of something like an exclusion and then trying to get the child back into school. And then she was in charge of the home education department. So you can kind of see how their experiences, their personal ideology is then imprinting on their expectations of us, and that's not right.
But I would be very interested to know why this article was withdrawn. That to me is quite interesting. And obviously, this is an anecdotal. This is totally anecdotal. There's no evidence. They've got to give us a bit more evidence than this. So that's very interesting. But thankfully, we do also get the positive articles, and we had a lovely article come out this week from Telford, where this parent is responding. If you remember, we had Keir Starmer's statement the week before, which was about how home education needs to be regulated because children are not integrating, and it basically implying that home educated children are possibly being radicalized or isolated and that kind of thing. And so this story is a really good positive story because this mum is just explaining how home education does not, there's a lot of misconceptions and it doesn't look the way a school will look, that it will look different. And so this is a really, really positive article and also might be worth sending to your MPs if you're writing to them. Might be worth sending them a link to this article, although be careful with links. Sometimes they get read as spam, I think,
That's a really good quote, that one of those lines there. Parents support each other with it, and the children are exposed to a vast array of opportunities. So she was well listened to by the person who was writing this article, because we find that a lot of these comments that we normally make are deliberately edited out to fit the narrative of whoever it is that's reporting. But this article, they've actually kept all the good bits in. And it's just so refreshing to see that,
and
especially from the BBC.
And the spokesperson for the Department of Education said they recognise home education be the right choice for some families. When they say some, they mean but not those ones, only these ones. But I think to me, if you look at the two stories, I think what is the key, like for me, it does bother me if there are some families that are struggling and struggling to provide an education for their children, and local authorities are using that as the definer of home education. That bothers me. And this article is making it talking about support. And I think that ultimately our own, we can find our own solution, to these problems that local authorities are seeing, that families are experiencing. It lies within our own community, in the way that we help one another and support one another. And the groups that are out there, these very large home education groups, are doing a marvelous job of supporting families and giving them correct information, sometimes incorrect information too, but then they're quick to correct each other. And we are a really amazing grassroots, peer driven movement, where families and parents, we are helping one another. When we see somebody struggling, we help them, we give them information, we empower them. And I think to me, the key is that we do need to be empowering one another, not putting each other down, and not sort of in our own community referring to, good and bad home education. We need to be empowering and encouraging one another. And if we see parents are struggling, helping them to get the help they need, signposting and so on. And if you've got, the thing, the fact is, many of these children, the parents did not want to take them out of school. They wanted their children to thrive. They wanted their children to be happy, but they've been left with no choice. So that is, that if it all goes back to the system that is failing children, ultimately it all goes back to that. There's no reason for parents to take their children out to home educate if their children are happy and thriving in school. There's no reason. So we do need to make sure that even if we get these articles, we need to point back to where the source of the problem lies. So we've got this negative article and this positive article. Let's take from it and see how we can use that constructively in conversation, and think about how we're going to engage in changing perceptions and changing the narrative about home education to a positive one. So then what do we have next, Kat? Okay, so we said earlier we're going to give you some tips on things that you can do to engage with your MPs. So we have created a template letter which covers asking our MPs to oppose these elements of the bill that we are not happy about. It also quotes various organizations and so on that have made statements about what the harm that the bill will do. So Amy, you're quite involved in posting this out to people and asking people to give you feedback when they have written to the MPs. Is that right?
Yeah, so we set this up, and within the first day, 80 MPs, 80 different MPs, I should say, had already received this email. As I'm speaking to you today, 122 have received this email. We do still need to keep pushing. There are other MPs that aren't being reached. Even if your MP hasn't responded to you, keep trying. Keep using this template or any other correspondence that you have
Write
seen.
your own. You don't have to use
write
the
your own, because as we said earlier, they can only respond with the template once. So their template that they've got, they can only use once. Once they've used that up, they've got to use something that's come from themselves. They've got to try and think of something better to say. And we've now had 3 responses to this that are being logged. So as your responses come back, do make sure that you put that on the thread that's talking about the responses that we're getting, so that they can all get logged as well. Our last template that we sent out, our last MP mass email, yielded a 60% response rate. So you are more likely to get a response from your MP than you are to not get a response from them. So let's use that. Let's get those MPs incentivized.
Yes, very good. And I think, it is important that, even, as I say, even if your MP appears to not be listening, doesn't respond, we need to pester them. We need to do everything that we can. And particularly if there's a few of you from your community and they're getting this letter, they know that there's several people that are unhappy. If you can personalize it, it's even better. If you can add any of your own
But you
stories and
don't
that kind
have
of
to
thing.
be a
You
pest,
don't.
Juliet.
Yeah, sorry.
You can wine and dine them as well. You can invite
Oh,
them
true.
to a home ed
Yes,
group.
and if
You know, there's other
they have any
ways.
nice things going on that you can attend, if they're having a surgery or like a, if they're going to be at some event, see if you can get yourself along there. There's lots of different ways, but we do need to keep engaging and letting them know that this is we're not going to go away quietly. So this template letter is available on the action group, but also please, if you have not yet subscribed to our Substack, um, you can subscribe to it, and you will get all of these links, all the articles, everything. You will get it in your inbox on Monday mornings. The if you cat is it exclamation mark subscribe or exclamation
Yeah.
mark Substack? It's one of those. Um, yeah. So if you put in the comments, if you type exclamation mark Substack, you will then be automatically subscribed. Is that right? Or will it? How does that work? It'll give you the link, and then you go to the link on Substack and you subscribe to our Substack so that you can receive all the documents, all the information. It's all put together in a lovely digest form for you and to receive on a Monday morning to have a look. It's a very good way to make sure you don't miss out on anything, because Facebook often doesn't show you all the bits. And this is a very good way to counteract that. Okay, so then we have what next? Oh, we have a new petition, don't we? So this is very exciting because we have managed to get another petition out, the lovely Michelle, which is already growing quite quickly. It was launched I think it came out this morning. It's about making sure, it's about asking the government that they have to add a category of exclusion to the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill to prevent sex offenders from accessing the increased amount of data that could be collected, stored, and shared. Now, this is partly also to highlight this particular vulnerability of this bill and the unique identifier that they want children to have. So it will highlight the vulnerability if we force it to be responded to by the government. If we can get it over 100,000, again, it means it's got to be debated in Parliament, and it just highlights this. And it's actually going to be a bit of a pain. If they've got to create this category, and they've got to make sure that every single person who accesses this bill is not on the sex offenders register, so
It's a good point, because we've had quite a lot of teachers who
oh wow, yeah,
haven't been quite the nice people that they ought to be and have brought the profession to shame, basically still being able to access files and data. And what we really need is to make sure that they are not allowed to do that.
Yeah. And that means they need to put more measures
Immediately.
in place. They need to put all sorts of more safeguards in place. So it just makes it all a bit more of a headache. And so please sign this petition and share it. We want to get as much attention on this bill as possible. We want to make it as much of a hot potato as we can, so that nobody wants to be holding it for very long. So please do share this petition.
And it only takes a few seconds to sign a petition.
Yes.
You just have to make sure that once you have signed it, that you do go to your email, you
and
check you've received the link. If you haven't, make sure you do the process again. If you are still having no luck and you've tried a different email address, then contact the petition office to let them know, because they will count your voice as against that point.
Yes.
So you need to make sure that you don't lose your voice because you've got a bit of a bizarre email address.
Yeah. And remember that as many members of your family can respond as well. You can even
children.
Yes, well, as long as they've got an email address, I guess. And you can use other email addresses if you have them. So if you have like 6 like me. But also don't forget the other petition, which is the Withdraw the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill immediately petition. That is still current, and you can still sign that and you can still share it. So we want as many petitions as possible about this bill, because it's all about um, creating awareness. And yeah, that's really, a lot of this is about creating awareness, highlighting vulnerabilities, bringing to the attention of MPs, and basically not letting it go out of there, disappear from the headlines or anything like that. So
some
yeah.
people are still telling me that the group that they have spoken to at a home ed meetup weren't aware of the bill even existing.
Yeah.
So you do need to, when you're out and about, raise it just as a slight topic of conversation, because they have a right to have a voice against this as much as anyone else. And if they don't know about it, then they can't have their voice heard before it's too late.
Exactly. And it's been out for more than a year. It was introduced 17th of December 2024. So it is more than a year that this bill has been through Parliament and so on. And it's quite I don't know, it just stupefies me that, we so many people are still not aware of it. So do sort of ask people, are you aware? Are you following the path of this bill? Okay. And then I think lastly we have a Valentine's campaign, don't we? So this is also just a bit of fun. Another way to contact your MP is we have created some Valentine's card. I know it's Valentine's Day tomorrow, but it's never too late to show some love. So if you on the action group under featured posts, you can find our template cards, and you can write your own message in as well. And you can, so we've designed a few cards, but you can also make your own or do whatever you like. But the message inside it, the message is basically about having a heart. To have a heart this Valentine's Day, and speak out now to get the children's wellbeing in schools bill scrapped. That's the message on all three of them, is roughly along those lines. So you see that message of you showing now, Kat, that is because when I went to do mine on Moonpig, it only gave like a little box, like 3 little boxes for the text. So I used the middle box. I created this size message so it could fit in the middle box. And then I wrote to my MP in the top and gave a little message. And then in the third box gave a little bit more of a message as well about what I wanted from them. Just raised a couple of the issues about the bill. So you can make your own. You can get your kids to make your own. You can post them. You can email them. You can load them on Moonpig or whatever, Funky Pigeon, any of those, and get it posted to them. And this is because we want our MPs to feel that we love them so much and want to share our every thought with them. So
Yeah, and don't forget, in some places that we are still voting quite
yes,
soon.
yes,
Hint,
we've
hint.
got some elections, by-elections, and whatever elections, I don't know, coming up, local elections. So you can see we've got some designs here, but please feel free to make your own. It doesn't matter if Valentine's Day is tomorrow. As I say, it's never too late to share a bit of love, and there's never a bad time. So it's just, to me, this is just another fun way of getting their attention. It's, like I sort of have an image of my MP, because I also did the Christmas card campaign for my MP as well, and I've emailed several times, and I imagine her sort of thinking, oh my goodness, what's this woman doing now? That's what I imagine. It's like, does she never give up?
No, and there's
Exactly.
a reason, because you won't give up.
Exactly. And that's and if you make them laugh, that's fine. Let them have a little laugh, but at least they've paid attention, they've noticed. So that's the idea with that campaign. So be creative. Do what it doesn't have to be Valentine's, it can be anything. Look and see if they've got a birthday coming up. Whatever. We need to be creative, and we need to get their attention by whatever means necessary. Um, so anyway, I'm glad I see
I
somebody
love
loves
that.
the idea. That's
Yeah, I
great.
love that. She
Yeah.
said, love that idea.
Yeah, and I think we just have to think outside of the box a little bit. You can
And why
also
not hand
target,
it in person? Then you don't
yeah,
have to pay the postage fee.
and you can also target Keir Starmer and Bridget Phillipson with this campaign if you want. You can, um, maybe maybe you should design one for Bridget Phillipson with a pancake on it because she seems to love showing pancakes for breakfast, and it's apparently iron brew as well. Anyway, but
What a breakfast! I mean,
that wasn't about
it's
breakfast. She was
slightly
trying. They were
more
trying. They were
healthy than
trying
the
to.
other
They
things
were
I've
trying
seen.
to humanize her on the DFE, the latest campaign. This is what they spend their 90 million PR budget on. Is trying. I
90 million
Yeah,
pounds.
and I actually commented on the latest post. I actually commented. I said, if all of these things were such a good idea, they would not need to promote it. People would just say, "Well, what a great idea." The fact that they're trying to sell it to us all the time, spending huge amounts of money trying to sell these things to us, tells us that there's something very wrong behind it and that they're deflecting and distracting us from other things. So, yeah, anyway, I think that's about it for tonight. So please remember to subscribe to the Substack, as I said. So, exclamation mark a Substack, and you'll get the link to go and subscribe because this is still the best way to make sure you do not miss out on important information. The other thing is you can put under this live on Facebook, you can put exclamation mark notify, and that will notify you every time we go live so that you don't miss out on this as well. But other than that, look, we've got work to do. Get on with it. Try and just commit to getting your
And
letter out to your MP.
share some of the public content as well. If
Yeah.
you really are struggling disability wise and you can't engage in other ways, you could just click the share button on some of the public posts
Yeah.
on the pages that we have.
Yes, and you can tag your MPs if you want them to read something. Tag them.
Yeah.
There was something else I was about to say. So about the MP letter. What was it? Oh gosh, my brain, and nothing lasts in my brain for very long. Just goes. But we can't give up yet. We need to keep on. Oh, what I did want to say is on our action group, we have a post which shares all the negative articles that people are sharing about things that are going wrong in the system and in schools. You can also go there to get some links of stories that you may want to say to your MP. Look, people keep saying my children are safe in school, but look, these are the headlines from this, between these few months or whatever. So
and
you can use that.
Jen's website still has the negative school experiences on it as well. So that's a good external
so that's
resource.
Doing Education Differently.
Yeah.
Website. You can just search Doing Education Differently, Jen Hodge, and her posts will come up. But let's keep on with this. And just thank you everyone for joining us, those that have joined us tonight. And if you're catching up later, thank you. And we will see you again 8 p.m. next Friday for a new update. Okay.
Hopefully a better one.
Hopefully a better one.
A celebration.
Yeah. And if anyone's having a break during half term, enjoy it. It's always calm when it's holidays, isn't it? So I hope you have a calm week. Take care and bye from us both and Cat behind the scenes.